Good afternoon. Welcome to the August Historic Zoning Commission meeting. And I would like to call the meeting to order. And the first item will be to approve, entertain a motion to approve the May 9th, 2022 minutes. Is there such a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the next set of minutes for July are not ready yet. That's why they weren't in your packet. So if we could have a motion to defer those minutes to the September meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thanks, Tyler. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now, Amanda, announcements.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I wanted to announce that we do have a design review committee meeting taking place a week from today on Monday, August the 15th at 4 p.m. in this room. And I will send the agenda out as soon as I get it. I haven't received any requests yet, so I will let you know if I don't receive requests, and we will have no need for a meeting. But
That would be a
just-
first.
It'll be a first. Everyone knock on wood. But ultimately, I might get something before the end of the evening. So I'll definitely keep you in the loop on that. Thank you.
Okay, now, are there vote to place any items, non-agenda items on the agenda? Are there any such items that are reserved for emergency instances that we have? Okay, now they're ready for citizens' comments on items not on the agenda. These are for Franklin citizens to be heard on items not included on the agenda, and as provided by law, the Historic Zoning Commission shall make no decisions or consideration of action of citizen comments except to refer such items to the planning director for administrative consideration or to schedule the matter for historic zoning consideration at a later date. Are there any citizen comments on items not on the agenda? All right, then we're ready for the consent agenda. And the items on the consent agenda are deemed by the commission to be routine in nature and will be approved in one motion adopting the staff comments as a part of the approval. Items on the consent agenda will not be discussed. Any member of the commission or the public desiring to discuss an item on the consent agenda may request that it be removed and placed on the regular agenda. It will then be considered in its printed order. Staff is recommending that items 1 and 2 be placed on the consent agenda. Is there such a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to place item 1 on the consent agenda, but to remove item 2 for further discussion.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Tyler. Any, then I guess we're ready to vote. All in favor of that motion to approve as consent item number 1, which is the consideration of alterations walkway and porch at 402 Bridge Street, and to consider it under the consent agenda, and to pull item 2, which is the consideration of alterations to previously approved plan at 903 West Main Street. So is there any, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item 1, we're done. See ya. Okay, we're ready then for item 2 to be heard, and that'll be first on our formal agenda tonight. Consideration of alterations to previously approved plan porch materials at 903 West Main Street. Amanda?
Yes, I accidentally gave away my staff report for this item, so let me pull that up briefly. Just a moment. Okay, so this item is a proposal to modify the front porch, specifically its materials. The Historic Zoning Commission issued a COA during its May meeting to modify the configuration. You can see on the screen here that the porch request previously was to remove sections that extended beyond the portico here. Remove this section, remove this section. And that was approved by the commission during May. The request this evening is to change the material, which is currently concrete, to a tongue and groove wood. This is a circa 1850 Greek Revival house. It's a contributing resource to the Hinchyville Historic District. The design guidelines recommend preserving original elements and materials. The guidelines also recommend that one maintain and repair decorated or deteriorated porch elements as needed and with materials that match the original. The existing porch is concrete. While in-kind is appropriate and there is no requirement that someone change that material, the applicant is requesting to utilize the material that she believes is more appropriate. The proposal to rebuild the remaining porch section with wood, which is more similar to the likely original material, is appropriate in light of the guidelines. And for this reason, it is recommended that the commission approve the alterations with the condition that it meets all the requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department prior to issuance of any permits. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come forward? Just identify yourself for the minutes and,
I'm Jenny
Okay.
Harbauer, and I'm the owner of 903 West Main.
thank you. Would you like to comment any more on this as to why do you want to make the change?
Really just consistent with what was already said, that
Okay.
we, have this opportunity, since we're doing all this work, to rip out the concrete, to go back to something that would have been more like the original. And that's really what our goal is here.
Okay. Are there any citizens who wish to comment on this application? Hearing none, we need a motion from the commission.
Mr.
Brian?
Chair, I move to approve with conditions the issuance of a C of A for the alterations to the porch material.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
All right, so this was, so I was a little confused by what's on the paperwork, because it says that the deck going back would be what's used, the wood, would be 2x8 pressure-treated lumber, this tongue and groove. And is that the actual floor joist material or the
Well,
actual decking part?
Actually, the decking would be there's a name, it's I'm gonna mispronounce this. Aeritus decking. So the deck would be built to code, and then over the structure of the deck would then be this Aeritus 2x8 tongue and groove decking material.
So is that a composite material or is that wood?
It's wood. A 1x4? A 1x4.
So it's a 1x4 and tongue and groove. The reason I ask that, because if I look at what the preservation brief says, the Department of Interior, for repairing and replacing porches, it suggests either using, a wood product like cypress or cedar or something other than like a pressure-treated product. This is not your floored trusses. This is for the decking
This would be kind of
part.
the decorative part of the decking, the top part.
And, so I'm not familiar with that product, that you're talking, that brand name product. So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's not an uncommon product to be used for this type, like it was kind of designed for this, that's my understanding. But, we can certainly look into, see if there's other materials that might be available that would fit into what you're saying. But I haven't gone that far just because this is the product that we, basically landed on. So, but, I think that would be consistent with what you think. Yeah, sure. Noel's doing our work.
Okay.
Hey, Noel, would you please introduce yourself for the record, please?
Yes.
Noel Jones, contractor for Jenny Harbauer. The proposed decking product is Aeritus composite 1x4 tongue and groove. And the benefit in my opinion, of using that product. It has the same profile of an old 1x4 pine tongue and groove, but the ends won't rot quite as rapidly as it would if it were a cypress or a treated pine or one of the standard wood products. So in the hopes that she doesn't have to do this again 5 years from now, this Aeritus product has been a nice compromise for that.
So it is a composite then?
Yes, it is a composite. And I believe, did you bring a sample?
I had it, but I didn't bring it.
It's,
Sorry.
it's good looking, it's got a wood grain on it, and then you can paint it, and once you paint it, you can't tell that it's not wood, you know, so it'll last a long time on the structure, you know, rather than putting wood back on.
I know our guidelines suggest not using a composite material, but actually using wood. And with personal experience, I've had really good experience out of cypress. Little movement, especially if it's a straight grain, few knots. I mean, holds paint great, resists decay and rot. And that's what the actual Department of the Interior recommends, cypress or cedar or redwood. Cypress would be more appropriate probably in our area,
Okay.
or cedar, but cedar's real knotty and splits. That could be the problem with it.
Yes, sir.
So do you want to make an amendment?
I would like to make an amendment to the motion that the decking material be a wood product and that it be cypress, cedar, or redwood as recommended by the Department of the Interior.
Is there a second to Brian's motion?
I'll second that.
All right. Any comments on the amendment?
The only thing that I'll say, and I am partial to using wood, but I've been involved in about, one of them is at the Macklemore House. I don't know, do you remember what kind of wood? Did you pay any attention to what that floor was?
I believe that was treated pine.
Yeah, it's already cupping, so I know you don't want treated pine. So I would echo that it be a stable material that's brought back to staff, because it's very disheartening to put it down and then have it start
Well,
cupping.
especially, it's our main walkway, so we want it to be stable
Yeah.
for people, you know, walking on it. So that's a goal, is to make it as secure as possible from that
But
perspective.
I feel like this is one of the landmark houses, so appreciate your efforts to get it back right.
Yes, well, thank you for that. Okay.
Are there any other comments on the
Thank you.
amendment?
Yeah, no problem.
Then all in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Now we're back to the main motion to approve with conditions as amended. Any other comments on that? Then all in favor of that motion as amended, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Then we're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you
Bye,
very
have a
much.
good night.
Okay, thank you, Brian. That was good discussion. All right, we're ready for our next item, which is consideration of principal building alterations, roof lines, porch enclosure, window and entrance openings, chimneys, site features, and new construction accessory at 121 Miles Manor Court. Amanda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item was deferred from last month's meeting so that the applicant can be present to represent the item. The application, because it was deferred, was not resubmitted, so I provided everyone electronic links to the application, but I also have two hard copies. There's one over here and there's one over there. So if you feel that you need to reference a hard copy, they are rather large, but you're welcome to do that. I will also have it on the projection screen. So the request is to alter an existing building through the enclosure of the rear porch, the modification of select window openings and door openings, the construction of 2 dormers, the modification of the rear roof line, construction of 2 chimneys, the construction of an accessory structure, the construction of a pergola, and the construction of a raised pool deck. And as a reminder, the applicant appeared before the DRC to discuss various aspects of the proposal April, May, and June this year. I'm going to start with the principal building. We'll figure out the best location to start that. Okay, on the top of the screen is the existing elevation. This is the left side of the property facing Mayberry Road or Mayberry Court. This is the proposed below it. So in general, the guidelines recommend that any alteration to a non-historic building serve as an opportunity to improve the overall structure's compatibility within a historic district, and that details and ornamentation should present minimal impacts to the historic district. The reason I bring that forward is because the subject property consists of a historic residence, but it has a substantial non-historic addition. The proposal seeks to address the non-historic portions of the building only, as well as the construction of some accessory uses on the property. Therefore, the guidelines specific to the alterations are for alterations to non-historic structures. So you can see on the screen, this is the existing elevation, the large portion here underneath this large gable, moving to the left, all that is non-historic. And then the smaller gables here are the historic portion. There are no changes proposed to the historic portion at all. The porch proposed to be enclosed is the porch here, located at the rear of the property. The proposed enclosure is not highly visible from the street, and the materials proposed for use are generally in keeping with those on the newer and historic portions of the building. The implementation of a higher foundation line, however, is not in keeping with the historic portions of the building and with the guidelines, which recommend that one should design such to be similar to those on the original building. So I'll zoom in. You can see this water table that's proposed here. The brick goes all the way up to the windowsill, and that's not recommended to take place, as it's not common on the historic building or really in the district. For roofline alterations and dormer construction, the proposal includes the alteration of this rear roofline primarily through the construction of 2 wall dormers at the left and right elevations. Here's the one you can see on the left elevation. The one on the right matches. And the alteration of the rear roofline, let me try to get that to that for you. Here. Which is currently a different configuration. They want to change it into 2 gables that are bridged together. Right now, it's a single cross-gabled element across the porch there. The roofline is in keeping with the scale of this building and surrounding buildings. The dormers are not entirely consistent with the guidelines, as the dormers are recommended to be recessed at least a foot off the exterior building wall. However, the proposed dormers are designed to match the architectural style of the building, which is Tudor Revival, and they're appropriately sized and located to fit for that style, and are therefore typical and appropriate. There are some modifications proposed to various windows and doors, and I'm happy to speak to each of those individually if requested. Essentially, it's kind of hard to show on the screen here. The guidelines recommend that new windows and their openings be designed to be compatible with the surrounding historic buildings with traditional solid to void ratios. The fenestration pattern on the non-historic addition, which would be the left elevation, the right elevation, and the rear elevation of the building, is proposed to change to relocate some doors, add some new windows, and to replace windows with larger windows to allow for more light. So here on the east elevation, you can see the current configuration. There are 2 smaller windows, said double doors, and 2 windows above. The alteration, you can see, modifies existing openings and adds them to create more glazing on the rear of the building. The windows and doors are all located on that non-historic addition, so the replacement themselves is appropriate and follows with the recommendations of our design review committee. The alterations are typical of the architectural style of the building and within the overall neighborhood. Exact window and door specifications have yet to be provided. If approved, those would need to be provided to staff prior to building permitting approval. Chimney construction. There is a proposal to construct 2 chimneys, one at the left elevation, which you see here, and one at the right, which you can see in the background. They are appropriate as they are typical to the building's architectural style and compatible in size, height, and massing to the existing buildings or the existing chimneys on neighboring buildings. Clay chimney caps are appropriate. The guidelines recommend that they do not overhang the rim of the chimneys. And moving on to the accessory structure, this is a proposed new build. There's nothing back there currently. The application includes the accessory structure. It's approximately 5 feet from the rear property line. The proposed structure is located behind the plane of the principal building. It's oriented parallel with the building's front facade, and it's designed to be visually subordinate in size, massing, scale, and height to the principal building. Details complement but are less elaborate than the character of the historic building. As I mentioned on the principal building, the foundation height on portions of this accessory structure is higher than recommended by the guidelines. I'm going to shift up here. You can see this is the rear elevation of the building, the main building. Here is the rear elevation of the proposed carriage house. You can see the foundation height comes up higher. This is the front elevation, excuse me, of the carriage house. This is the elevation that would face the back of the house. And then there is an elevation here. This is the rear, where you can see that foundation height comes up to the bottom of the window sill. I suspect that's designed that way because this is the place where the pool deck is proposed to come from. Like it just transitions to the pool deck from here. But in theory, the design guidelines would recommend that foundation heights or water tables match those on the historic building and be typical to what you see in the neighborhood, which this is not. The proposal also includes a pergola that's proposed to be constructed between the enclosed rear porch, you see the pergola here, and the accessory structure that you see here. The guidelines do not specifically comment on pergolas, but they do note that the site and setting alterations should be considered appropriate when they are undertaken in locations that are not visible from public view, do not involve the removal of historic features, and do not detract from or overwhelm the context of the historic district. In this case, there is limited visibility of the pergola at its proposed location, but it complements and does not overwhelm the building or the district. Now there is a raised pool deck you can see on the screen here. There's also some renderings that you see in the materials that were provided to you that show it from different vantage points. But the proposed pool deck is to the right of the principal building, and you can see also to the right of the carriage house. The grade level of the deck is proposed in order to connect it to the principal and accessory structures. It's proposed to consist of a stone veneer comparable to that used elsewhere at the building, and I believe the applicant has brought some today to show you. And it is also proposed to utilize a metal fence with vertical spindles as the railing on top, which is required for barrier specifications for codes. The guidelines do recommend that decks be placed on rear or side facades with minimal visibility and use designs, materials, and scale in keeping with building character. This deck may be visible from certain vantage points in front of the building, but it is generally subdued due to the roadway sightlines, and it is located at the end of the street's block face. This is at the very back of the subdivision in which it's located. Further, its construction does not involve the removal of historic features. It does not detract from or overwhelm the context of the historic district. So with that, it is recommended the commission approve the application with the following conditions. I will share those conditions on the screen. The condition that the applicant lower the foundation heights at the porch enclosure and the rear carriage house facade for adherence with the guidelines, that the alteration be submitted to staff or the commission for review and approval prior to issuance of a building permit, that the chimney caps be designed to meet all the guidelines, that new windows must be wood or match historic windows, and those specifications must be submitted to myself or the commission for review and approval prior to work commencing. Otherwise, the proposal must meet all the other requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department, including the consolidation of the affected lots. There are 2 lots shown here. They are not consolidated. That must take place before the work commence because the work spans from one lot to another. Thank you.
Would the applicant like to come forward, please?
Hey there, good evening. Scott
Good
Harrop,
afternoon.
CS Harrop Architects. Good to see y'all again.
Comments?
No, that was a great, thank you, Amanda, for that introduction and review of the application that we've been, submitting for a little while, but been really enjoyable dialogue, and we're happy to be at this point.
Okay, thank you. Are there any citizens who wish to comment on this application? If not, need a motion then from the commission.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve with conditions the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the proposal.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, when I look at the chimney on the, I'm not sure which side this is labeled.
It would
but
say west
the one
or
between the
east.
2 windows,
Okay, on the,
Mayberry Court.
on the Mayberry,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
To me, my eye runs right to that chimney. So I personally think it would be fit more in keeping with the neighborhood if it came off the windows and came in a little bit. That's,
is this the one, Ms. Pierce? Well, it's trying to load. Okay,
that one.
yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
My eye just goes there. And usually in a picture, when your eye goes there, in reality, it goes there. So I would like to see, I don't think that close to windows is typical of what you see. So I'd love to see that be modified somewhat if that's possible. And then my other comment would be that the fencing, have you seen a style of it, Amanda?
Are you talking about fencing for the pool? Mm-hmm. They provided several photographs that show the
Okay.
inspiration for that.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. So that's my
So-
comment.
Okay, do you want to make an amendment on the chimney
Well, Mr. Chair, before we do that, may I ask for clarification from staff?
about?
So on condition number 3, where it says that new windows must be wood and match the historic windows, were you actually suggesting that they make those windows smaller? That on each side of the chimney?
No, I apologize for the confusion. That was meant to be that the windows be wood and match the historic windows in profile.
Okay.
Right.
I'll be more clear next time. These are
Actually-
new design guidelines.
Actually, if I can ask a question about that particular point, does the exterior need to be wood, or is it just the profile, mutton pattern? Is it about the operation, mutton patterns, pane light size? Is it about that, or is it about the material?
The guidelines state that when windows are proposed on additions to historic buildings, that they be wood. I can double check the language. We do have a new design guidelines document, so I do have some confusion in my head sometimes between the two. I used the last one for over 10 years. It may be that it will allow for a composite that's emulative of wood.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of wood windows. I just want to make sure, for my client's sake, what you all, what the requirement would really be on that, whether we needed to go with wood
I think we've been amenable
to a clad
to
product.
aluminum-clad wood windows.
Yeah.
In the
Okay.
past.
We approve aluminum clad wood pretty commonly on new infill construction. I would need to see if, let me look that up really quickly for the current design guidelines. But the way that the guidelines read, if I recall correctly, is that they need to match what's on the historic house and material.
Well,
Gotcha.
Right, and
while
that's at
happening,
least how the motion was made.
while that's happening, Mr. Chair, if the applicant could comment, because if you look at the chimney on the original house, and then you look at this chimney on down, it's pretty stunning difference.
Okay, so one must design windows to, or should design windows to match the historic materials found on the building, but composite materials that have the appearance of wood are appropriate for windows, stops, jambs, and trim.
Excellent, thank you. So, Ms. Pierce, to address that comment, actually on the front facade of the historic home, that chimney is outboard of the interior wall. So you can see it, much like we were proposing on the Mayberry Court side. That elevation, you can see that that's obviously looking at from the side. I think we have a front elevation as well from Miles
You
Manor.
should have a photograph.
We got a photograph and we've got a front elevation of that.
But Mayberry's almost like another front.
Oh, it absolutely is. That's right. Which is the reason we wanted to emulate the initial Miles Manor Court
Yeah.
treatment of that fireplace and that chimney, so that it's sticking out a little proud of that exterior wall. So it's an outboard fireplace, outboard chimney, as opposed to inboard. We can certainly study that and look at that in proportions, push that chimney in and see if we need to do what that might do to the roof lines. So, that was the effort. Now, that one's, tucked into the corner. It's got that
Right.
other gable kind of obviously absorbing some of its mass.
Right.
So we can look at maybe how that might want to push into the house if we've got room to do that.
I think if there were a way just to scale it back generally
Yeah.
a bit, to come off the window and go up.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So your motion.
I'll make that as a motion.
Amendment is to say what?
To, on the Mayberry side chimney.
Right.
To bring it off each window a foot.
Good.
How far, well, sorry, I'll wait till we have discussion.
If I have to say
Each
something.
side, each,
You can
each
tell me
window.
what's
Yeah,
feasible.
I think what will likely be more feasible, ma'am, is if
Yeah.
we actually look at potentially pushing it into the inboard side, interior of the home. The
Okay.
width of that firebox and allowable masonry, non-combustible material we need
Okay.
around that firebox is essentially what we have right there. So if we
Well-
were to shrink it left and right a foot, we would have a
Okay,
tiny,
so
tiny
you're
firebox.
better off, the word I would say is bringing it into the interior.
Right.
Of the house.
Right.
to coordinate's not my word, but
To bring the chimney
with the inside of the house, all right.
and
So is that in essence making it have less of,
massing.
well, I think it'll appear to be the same. It'll just be inset so it doesn't stick as far out from the wall. Is that what
Okay.
you mean?
I think anything that would minimize the scale of this would be helpful.
Okay.
And if you say that will minimize the scale, I would
Yes,
trust
ma'am.
that's true.
This is what I've heard. That on the Mayberry side chimney, to bring to bring it in,
No,
bring the chimney in, out.
he
bring
said,
it-
let the applicant state it, because
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah, the width, the left to right
width,
dimension
yeah.
right now is as narrow as it really can be. So what we'll need to do is study how it projects sort of forward or backward. Like, right now,
Oh.
it's outside the exterior wall. We
Okay.
could look at doing an interior fireplace so that the chimney doesn't have quite the pronunciation architecturally that it does today. So we can continue to kind of float some things your way to see what you would like. But that's, we can study ways to do that, Ms. Pierce, and get that resolved. I'm not sure, if it were me writing it down, it would be,
Adjust, so
Yeah.
you're trying to adjust the chimney to minimize the mass on that side. That's what,
yes, sir.
that's
Yes,
what I'm
sir.
hearing Mary say.
That's right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that sounds like a winner.
If you understand it and Mary understands it, I think everybody else will so too, so we can go from there. So any other, so Mary's made that motion. Is there, anybody want to make a second of that, or somebody make a second?
I don't,
Well,
that's
it dies
fine.
for a second then.
Yeah,
Okay.
what I'd say, if, Amanda, if you could zoom out so we could see that elevation as well as the original. I respectfully, of course, disagree. I think I understand that the windows being jammed up against the chimney is an odd detail, but you can make a pretty good argument that Department of Interior tells you to make it distinctly different in you know, form, materiality, all these things, fenestration. So I don't have a huge problem with that, but I think they could address it by just pulling the windows, taking 4 or 6 inches out of the window so you have a piece of wall material and molding or whatever happens there.
Yeah.
The chimney, I actually really like, because if you look at the top picture, the most dominant form piece in that original is the addition gable. When you look at that, the biggest thing on the drawing is that addition gable. And when you insert that chimney, it breaks that gable scale down to a place where it's not the biggest, baddest thing
Yeah,
anymore.
where,
It's more comparable to the one next to it. Even though it's taller, it doesn't feel that way in drawing anymore. And the chimney, I think he's right. The width can't be, nothing can be done. If he pushes it inboard and it just expresses itself a little bit, the drawing's going to look exactly like it looks today.
well.
But if we
where-
pull the windows apart, or if they can be pulled away from the chimney a little and it's a detail thing, or if the windows need to get a little narrower to accommodate that, then I think that's a good way to give us a little space and take a little bit of the dominance from that central section and distribute the weight a little
Where
more.
I'm coming from is I've just seen several projects we approved, where, I thought the chimneys were too large, and when they got built, they were. So that is my only concern, and if there's, you know, if no one else agrees with that, I'm totally comfortable with that.
Yeah, and I think the thing about chimneys, we have to remember that 100 years ago, chimneys didn't have as many rules about how tall they have to be and things like
that's
that.
true.
So now we have to be 2 feet above a ridge line within 10 feet. So now we get chimneys that are just extraordinarily tall, and that's just a result of code too. So I get both arguments, but we have to meet code, and you know, I don't want to tell folks they can't have chimneys, which I don't think anybody's saying here, but you know, they are a certain size, and I think what you've done helps the elevation and the scale of what was not a bad addition, but had some scale issues, certainly. We can all agree on that.
Yes.
So,
Mr. Chair, what I would affirm to Ms. Pierce's point is that when you look at the drawing of the proposed addition, and to the far right where you see the original window, and then you come to the left and you see the very 2 large windows, they are kind of out of scale in proportion to each other. And to some of the points that have been made here, if those windows were scaled down a little bit, it might relieve the discrepancy between the historic and the modern and the mass of that chimney.
So do you want to make that as an amendment?
Can you remember that? And,
I kind of got the gist of it.
all right,
But I
well
want to,
then, I would like to amend the motion with the gist, Mr. Chair.
that the windows be adjusted.
That the windows be
on either
adjusted,
side of the Mayberry chimney be minimized.
be minimized, that's right.
Is that-
And would you, I know I heard a foot before, but would 6 inches to the window surround on each side of the chimney, would that
Oh, we would definitely have room for a brick mold and some nice, casing of those windows. And I think that it would probably want to be maybe the height as opposed to the width. If we stayed, the proportions of those would start to get a little too vertical, just in my professional opinion, if we
I
changed the
agree.
width of them and kept the height. So I might be looking at the height, maybe raising the sill up a little bit perhaps to, have a little bit of a proportion that speaks to the original home better.
Yeah, we're talking about height and width
Yeah.
in scale,
Yeah,
not just the.
it's a
the
head
width.
height thing too.
Yeah.
They're a little higher head, which I think would be pretty, but doesn't necessarily match the old house. And then, you may be looking at losing a light from the bottom and from the side. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually even entertaining the idea of old, triple hungs there, but that, had a lot of height to them, bringing a lot of natural, we all are familiar with triple hung windows. But that's, we'll study those, appreciate the comment, and continue to make it right.
Okay, is there a second to Brian's amendment?
Does that amendment include staff review prior to permitting?
Yes, it does
Yes.
include staff review. It would come back
I'll
to staff.
second it.
Thank you, Mary.
So, just to be clear, that would not, for these folks, they would not have to come back before the commission as
No.
long as staff
Right.
Staff
approves.
will review that.
And my
change.
only other suggestion, I was gonna make a proposed amendment if you wanted.
Well, let's get through with this one first.
Well, I'm
Is
just
it-
gonna
unless
speak
it's
to
the
it.
same.
No,
Okay, all right,
well,
that's
it
fine.
ties to it, just to that condition that the windows be wood, if we wanna make it wood or composite to be consistent with the new guidelines.
That's what
it-
was intended by the staff report. I just wrote it in a way that wasn't clear.
That's
so.
okay, no criticism, I just wanna make sure that later, they can do what they need to do in compliance with the guideline. And that way they have the flexibility for the composite since that's consistent.
Great,
Right.
thank you.
That was it, that was my
Okay,
comment.
I think we're clear with that without having to
Okay,
tinker with this. So I've got this amended motion. Is there any other comments on the amended motion? And again,
Well-
I'll
Okay.
just state it as I understand it. Windows on either side of the Mayberry chimney to be minimized with staff review.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Other comments?
That was just what I was gonna add, that the staff review the new windows since they were gonna change.
Which is, it's
Okay.
basically what number 3 says.
All right.
that was included in the motion, the staff review, right?
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
what I heard.
Yeah.
HCC for review.
All right, is there any other comment about the application? Ready to vote then. All in favor of the motion to approve as amended, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're done.
Thank you all.
Now, let me make this doesn't have anything to do with what we just talked about. But I live in an area right now that's got 4 construction projects going on all around me. One behind me, one by the side of me on the side street, and 2 within 100 yards of me. I would encourage you and the owner and the contractor to be very sensitive to your neighbors. And the reason I say that is there's going to be construction, this is a big project. There's going to be construction traffic, there's going to be construction moving stuff in and out, there's going to be dumpsters, there's going to be trash, there's going to be noise. And the city has some pretty strict hours of operation that it wants you to adhere to. And when there are complaints, they will be on top of it, and to the point that they'll shut it down. So with the tightness of that area, I would just encourage all to be very sensitive to the neighbors that are in close proximity to that location.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah,
So,
we'll do that.
That's my
Yep.
advice going farther. It's,
Absolutely. You're living it. Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I have been living it.
Yeah.
We've got 2 projects that are about 7 months past when they were supposed to be done, and I know the owners are frustrated.
Yeah.
But that's the world that we are in right now in the little area that I live. So,
And this is a very tight
and it's a
parking
tighter area than what
situation. Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
And neighbor back here in the back who will be before us in a minute can fully understand the situation.
I'd also like to add, I really want to commend the applicant and the building owners. They have worked really, really hard to go from, a whole new way of thinking about this proposal. It was initially an addition, and they've worked really, really hard to play within the lines, and I want to thank them very much for that. I think this product is fantastic, and I look forward to working with you on it moving forward.
Thank you, Amanda, really appreciate
Thank
that.
I have
Okay.
another question.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
Kathy.
Y'all brought a sample, can we see it?
Well, I just brought different stone samples.
Yeah.
for The pool deck as an option, just to show you that we were trying to match it. We found out that the stone on the house is actually man-made, so it's not the original stone. So we tried, Noel was helping us find different companies that we thought were in compliance with that, so. This was one of the companies that we think might have made what's on the house right now. And so we could go with this company. So I brought this in to see what y'all thought about that for this. This is the side of the pool, I guess, that would be going up. That you won't see a whole lot from the road. One option, and then there's a thin cut of actual limestone, which I think is pretty, but it's not exactly the same as what's on there since they chose man-made, but that's what we think is on, yeah, so.
What would be your recommendation, your first pick?
Honestly, from my perspective, sitting right here, I could never make a selection, because I'm not sure that this is, either one of these is gonna be perfect. Mortar changes stone dramatically, so if this is what we think is actually on the house, then that's gonna be the one that we might pick. I'm not a huge fan of manufactured stone, so I'm a bit of a purist in that way, so I'd love to find a stone, a natural stone that would work to give us the match that we want, but the authenticity of the natural material. So I don't know that I agree with Michelle, I think that was not quite the right color,
Yeah.
but I would love to get a natural stone that is. So we're still gonna work on that thing.
Yeah, we're passionate about it looking really good, so.
Will the stone come back to staff for approval? The way it's
I don't think
written?
that was in
I don't think that was in the conditions, because I knew the applicant was bringing them forward, and we forgot to ask about it. But, if someone were to ask me now, it is approved, but moving forward, when you're going through for a building permit, this is a little different. Typically, I would recommend a real stone, like she has in her hand, but because she's working with a product that isn't, it may draw more attention to the fact that the stone on the house is not a real stone. So I think going with a stone that it has a similar appearance to what's there, which is actually a really nice material, because the house looks great.
It looks great.
I think that would be the most appropriate. But as Scott said, a lot depends on the mortar too. Just trying to stay within the color range of what's already on the house, I think will help subdue it, so your eye's not drawn to the pool. Your eye's just drawn to the overall form.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for our next item.
There are issues. There are issues. I'll tell you.
Here we go. Consideration of alterations storefront windows and doors at 252 Fifth Avenue North.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for the alteration to the storefront facade, as seen here on the screen. Further, the proposal seeks to modify the left facade at the location of the addition. Let me find the original photos. So you can see there's an addition at the rear of the property. We'd like to modify the facade at this location as well, through the creation of a secondary entrance and new window openings. The applicant did speak to this proposal, or a representative of the applicant appeared before the BRC to discuss this proposal at its July meeting. So the subject building is a historic building. It's proposed to be rehabilitated for use as 2 restaurants. The original storefront has been altered, and that is something that we discussed at length at the DRC, looking at historic photographs of the building at a point in time. The photograph was taken in relation to a floodplain discussion, and so it was nice to be able to have that to reference. The new entrance is proposed to be loosely restored based on that historic documentation, and then the new entrance at the rear of the facade is to allow for another restaurant opening. So I'm going to speak to the front facade now. This is how existing conditions look. The guidelines would recommend that one restore an altered storefront to its original design using historic photographs when possible. And where that evidence does not exist, that one use traditional designs and arrangements. So using the historic photograph as reference, the DRC and staff feedback was that the applicant provide various options showing the front entrance centered on the building, but then also centered on this perpendicular walkway that leads up to the entrance. So you can see right now the door is not in alignment with the sidewalk that was put in by the city during the streetscape project. The DRC also recommended that the 4 brick pilasters, 1, 2, 3, 4, be maintained, that they be evident in the new proposal. And that, you know, staff also recommended that the applicant incorporate the same approximate window glazing area at the left and right side of the entrance as shown in the historic photograph. I'm going to skip ahead to the various options. Oh, here's the historic photograph. For those of you who weren't at DRC last month, you can see there's a significant window size here, a centered entrance, and bulkheads with windows on either side. This was a centered entrance on the building. So the applicant has provided various options with the door centered on a bulkhead or with no bulkhead, door aligned on the sidewalk with or without bulkhead, and then, you know, vestibule bump outs. I'm happy to go through all of those if requested, but staff is reviewing this in light of the guideline recommendations. And while it's difficult to tell what that original bulkhead material on the storefront was from the historic photograph, it appears that it may have been wood or tile. It doesn't appear to look like masonry to me. So option B here on the screen with the centered door and then the fiber cement paneled bulkheads underneath the windows, to me is most closely matching the historic appearance of that facade. And in accordance with the guidelines, option B would be most appropriate because of that. The original windows appear to have been a glass block material, and the DRC supported the use of more typical storefront glass, though with grids, to pay homage to the original and current appearance. Information has not yet been provided to specify how the storefront windows are proposed to be gridded, but either reuse of those existing windows or the replacement with a truer simulated divided light with a wood or metal mutton and mullion pattern would be most appropriate based on the age and the architectural style of the building. This is a building with a more industrial look. It's been altered over time to kind of lessen that, but the use of a metal pattern here could be appropriate given the original design of the building. They shouldn't have snap-on muttons or mullions. Now with the left facade, you can see here on the screen, like I said, it has a addition at the back. The new entrance is proposed here with some windows added on the addition. And here's a rendering to show that. The guidelines recommend against the placement of new entrances on storefronts and note that if an additional door opening is required, that it be added to the rear facade. That new entrances have simple detailing that complements the historic entrance. And while this is not located on a rear facade, the proposed Door opening is located at the rearmost location of the left facade of the historic portion of the building, and the new entrance is designed to read as secondary in size and detailing from the front entrance. Windows are proposed to be on the addition. The guidelines recommend that any proposed windows be placed on non-visible facades. So while the date of construction of this addition is unknown, outward-facing facades without fenestration, like what you see currently, is not typical. So the guidelines would recommend that if windows are to be approved, that one, design new windows with historic profiles and dimensions compatible with the historic building. Wood or metal storefront windows with clear glass would be the most appropriate here based on the age and architectural style of the building. With that, it is recommended the commission approve the application with the conditions that the applicant utilize option A for the storefront, or I'm sorry, option B for the storefront, what you see on the screen. Based on the analysis, on the front facade, the applicant must either reuse the existing windows or replace them with a truer simulated divided light with a wood or metal muntin and mullion, which are the vertical and horizontal bars. On the left facade, the applicant must utilize either a wood or metal storefront window. All new glass must be clear. The historic windows on the original building's left and right facades must be preserved and maintained. Those are very much character-defining windows. The signage is not approved a part of this plan. Signage would need to include additional information, and that would be reviewed separately for issuance of COAs, potentially eligible for administrative approval. And that the application meet all the other requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department prior to issuance of a permit. Thank you.
Would the applicant,
I'm sorry, I'd like to add one more thing. There are some project considerations that I provided for the applicant. I won't read through all of those, but those are things I'd like the applicant to be aware of before they apply for permitting. Thank you.
okay, would the applicant please come forward?
Sam Johnson, Jr.
Sam Johnson.
Would you like to make any additional comments on this application?
The current tenant may have been irreparably spooked by the denial of outdoor dining. So we're here as representing the building, not necessarily the restaurant. The architect declined to show up because of the outdoor dining non-existent. So we're here to get approval on the design so we can resell that to a new tenant. But the outdoor dining issue kind of broke the camel's back here.
Okay. Are there any citizens who wish to comment on the application? Hearing none, we need a motion from the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve with option B as the entry and with staff comments and in accordance with the city's building guidelines.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I second that.
Thank you, Tyler. Discussion.
Can we clarify that staff is recommending B with the bulkhead too? Just, I know that.
Yes.
We're all meaning that, but.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's two Bs there, one with, one without. I think but that's, I think the center door makes sense. The side door, although it's against the guidelines, kind of recommendations to add a new opening, I understand it's a necessity, and I feel like it's in the best spot it can be, and I'd rather see y'all do something with the building than let it stay empty. So I'm all for it.
Well, I feel like it's on a very rare addition, and the real treasure here is the main mass building.
Okay.
So
any-
that's why I would go with that.
Any other comments?
I just had a question about the comment about the outdoor dining. Is
Yeah.
that tied to the additional project considerations. Is that where that's coming from?
It's a
Okay.
flood zone issue.
Yes,
the flood
it's
zone.
a floodplain
Totally
issue. It
unrelated,
has,
just the removal of the table and chairs.
right.
Yeah.
It's storage of furniture in the floodplain. It could be used, but would have to be removed every evening.
Okay,
Yeah, they're unwilling to remove it every evening.
gotcha. All that unrelated to what we're doing tonight.
That, we don't have control over that.
Has parking ramifications too, is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Anything else? Ready to vote?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You've done a beautiful job.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
It is
Um,
exciting.
We've come a long way.
I really
Just
love
wish I
how
had a
you,
tenant, that'd be awesome.
I really love how you've embraced the historical image you gave us. One question I would ask too is when we look at the option B with bulkhead, and I know we're not talking signage right now, but is there some way we can contain in that bulkhead like a feature banding of whatever material that is? Is that brick, or you putting a new brick facade on it?
No, it's existing.
It's all existing?
Last,
Okay.
at the design review committee, they recommended keeping the column structure that was there on the left and right, which we've worked into that design and kept those.
Okay.
There was no masonry at the center
Okay.
entrance currently, so
I'm
they're
just
wanting
looking at
fiber cement panels because I did ask them about that
Okay.
through email, just wanted to know what was there, and there's nothing but studs, right?
It's bare studs on the inside with just kind of siding, hardy board siding on the outside. Yeah.
I just felt like containing the signage within that bulkhead banding area as opposed to the original photo, how it showed the laundry.
Yeah.
It ran all the way across the whole front of the building,
Mhm.
which wouldn't happen nowadays, but still.
Is that it, Kathy? Any other comments? Ready to vote? All in favor then of the motion to approve with option B with the bulkhead on the entrance, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, I want to thank you. I know this is a very complicated situation. You have some floodplain ramifications. You've worked through this. Once we were able to find a path for you, you've been very, very astute, and you've brought an amazing plan forward. And I want to thank you so much. You're doing a great job trying to bring this building back to life, both of you. Thank you very, very much.
Well, Mr. Chair, I have had lots of friends visit Franklin and wondered if we were having some kind of a blighted retail situation here because of this area on Hillsborough Road. So I think it, just for the whole city, as a gateway into town, it's exciting.
It's kind of been like a little ghost town, and this is going to activate that corner.
That's right.
Yeah, well, personally, I do consider it a contribution
It is.
to our town. I do.
I agree.
So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right, we're ready for item 5, consideration of partial demolition, additions, alterations, roof line at 1336 Adams. Rob McKelvey. Okay, Amanda.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting consideration of really a project that's been brought forward and approved by the commission twice before. It was brought forward originally, and the applicant owners wanted to bring it back forward because the COA had expired. The second time, it was brought forward because the COA had expired. In this case, it's brought forward as previously approved with some minor changes. You can see on the screen here, originally, there was the addition proposed where the sunroom is. Currently, that's a non-historic sunroom, but now they'd like to bring a little bit more square footage to the rear of the property here as well. So I'll talk through that briefly. As I mentioned, there is a 1980s sunroom here that's being proposed to be removed. The construction of an enclosed addition at generally the same footprint here, and then that portion here. This does involve a half-story upper level as well. As far as the sunroom, the guidelines recommend against the demolition of historic buildings or structures if they retain integrity. This is approximate 385 square foot sunroom built in the 1980s, since as a non-historic addition, its removal would be appropriate. As far as additions, the guidelines recommend that they be located at rear facades or designed to be compatible with the historic building, yet identifiable through the use of differentiating methods. The addition should have a lower scale and height than the historic building, and roof shapes, pitches, level of complexity be similar but subordinate to the historic building. And that the size of additions not exceed 50% of the building footprint of the historic portion. One should size cumulative building footprint so it doesn't exceed 35% of the lot. So this family room addition is intended to be in the same general area as the existing addition to be removed. The addition features a bedroom on the upper level, which I'm going to go ahead and skip to. It's a very large file. It's kind of being slow, I apologize. So you can see on the top part of the screen, this is the rear elevation. You can see where there's accommodation for an upper level addition through the adjustment of the roof line. The shed dormer is currently there, is proposed to be removed to allow for this. And the, excuse me, let me go back here. Here's the rear addition, if that helps. So you can see it. So there is an addition, a dormer here. They'd like to remove that and then add another gable form for the new addition, and then kind of hip them together at the rear, which would allow for some ceiling height. And due to the location, the area would not be highly visible from the intersecting street, the Gist Street, or from Adams Street. The addition is proposed to be inset from the existing left facade wall. And because of this, this addition would be clearly identifiable from the original form. The remaining lower level additions at the back of this gable. It is proposed to be recessed underneath the gable eaves here, so that it's going to be apparent through that roof break that is a new addition as well, as differentiated from the original. So I will go back so you can see the elevation. It's very tucked underneath there. There was a different proposal before, and I worked with the architect on that, but this is just tucked slightly underneath the existing gable. If you were to look at it from the right side elevation, you can see how that's tucked in, and you can see the break there.
Nice.
The materials of the addition are fiber cement siding to match the existing asphalt shingle roofing, and window and door specifications haven't been provided, nor has the foundation cladding. The size of the proposed addition is approximately 23% of the historic structure, which is consistent with the guidelines. It is recommended that the commission approve the application with the conditions that the windows have historic profile and dimension, consist of either wood or a composite material with the appearance of wood. See, I got that on this one. And that the window specifications be submitted to staff for review and approval. That the foundation material match that of the existing house, and that it meet all the requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department prior to issuance of permitting, with any additional changes proposed coming back to staff for review and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come forward?
Hi, my name is Rob McKelvey. I'm the architect representing Wayland and Tina Thompson.
Any other comments other than what Amanda said?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay. Any citizens left?
May I?
Homeowner.
I think you he would be in
I think he's in
On this
in
one.
favor of it, I'd be my guess.
I did fail to mention one thing, was brought to my attention. There is a note on the plan, on the site plan, that shows a fence being proposed around the front perimeter. I did not notice that during the review. I would not have had enough information to substantiate a full review on that anyway. Front yard fences do not qualify for administrative approval, so if the applicant wanted to proceed with that, it would be recommended that that portion not be approved and come back later with additional information, including not just the perimeter as shown here, but a spec that shows the design, the materials, the profile, and the height.
Was the intent for that to be included, that front decorative fence, that small?
Yes, but I don't believe that's a deal breaker on this.
No, okay, not at this stage.
We're willing to approve the addition.
We won't even deal with that then at
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
at this juncture, okay.
It's a lot of fence.
Well, it's just,
There's a picture on the site plan of
Oh,
kind of the design
It's
intent.
beautiful, what's on the site plan.
So since it's actually on the site plan, does that need to be included in the amendment, that the fence is not included?
I
It
would
is
recommend that.
Yeah, that's
Unless you're ready to approve it now, it's just not, I didn't note that, unfortunately. I was comparing what was approved to what was proposed and missed that.
okay, so, anyway, let's just start with a motion, and then we'll have an amendment to the motion on the fence.
And like I said, if you want to approve it now, you're more than welcome to. It's just not something I have a recommendation for you to do right now.
I'll move to approve with conditions the issuance of a C of A for the proposal, except for the fencing, which I think would need to come back.
And I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brian, and Josh.
May I make a comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
There, just to clarify, there's a modification to the privacy fence at the rear, and then there's a proposal for the wrought iron fence at the front.
Right, and I
So-
think the wrought iron fence is what,
Yeah, I just want to make sure in
Amanda was
his,
focused on.
what he's proposing, that it's clarified that it's just for the wrought iron fence.
Well, do we know
Yeah,
what
I
the
don't-
privacy fence
I
looks
don't know what
like?
where the privacy fence is, so we may want to,
Wood.
I didn't pick that up either.
Is it new, or are you just repairing it?
It's modified.
So I see the existing wood privacy fence to remain and that there's some repair and patching proposed.
And then if you go
To the driveway.
Is it here?
just a little further to the right, right there,
But by the driveway,
right where your cursor is.
So
Basically
you want
right in
to
the
take the
middle.
fence and pull it in to connect to the house?
Correct. Yeah, right, yeah, that segment right there.
That's something that can be approved by staff through a
Yeah,
brief
yeah,
administrative
yeah.
process.
Okay.
So yes, it'll require you just filling out a 2-page application for me.
Okay.
Okay. But I can handle that because it appears to be a rear yard fence.
Correct.
all right, so we're gonna, the motion then is to approve with conditions except for the wrought iron fence, or the metal fence.
Anything with respect to fencing was my motion.
Do what?
Anything with respect to fencing was my motion.
Okay, all right.
That way
But-
there's no
but what-
confusion.
Amanda has just said on the wooden piece that's already, she
Right.
can approve that piece.
Yeah.
I think what Mr.
Tomorrow.
Denton meant is that he wants staff to review that portion as well, but it qualifies for staff review.
Yeah, well, that's what you'd said
Right.
originally, so that's,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Okay. Any discussion then?
Good with this.
Ready to vote?
I had to look at these drawings a few times.
Oh, you hadn't been here for the previous.
No. So this is, I understand the guideline kind of necessity for that roof break on the new addition. Dropping down, it is still a little peculiar looking, but I guess if that's the rules, that's fine. I don't know if that's better or worse, just to let it come straight out instead of kind of this Frankenstein-looking thing. It took me a minute to figure out the roof. In the roof plan, is there supposed to be a gutter break line there? If you go to the roof plan, or the roof plan. Because those gutters aren't continuous on either side of that new addition, right? Am I reading that right?
I'm not sure where you're asking.
The new addition, that's not the sunroom.
Uh-huh.
It's on the back of the laundry.
Mm-hmm.
Since those roofs are broken, the gutter line's broken too.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, there should be like a little
There's a line
segment
there.
of a line at the
And on the
gutter.
other end, between the sunroom and that building, right? And
Yeah,
in the
so
little
it's
notch.
a
And then you are
graphical error in the drawing.
extending the existing roof up to the flat roof. Right, upper left-hand quadrant, it says existing, but it's getting extended longer up to the main roof.
If you go to the rear elevation.
Yeah, on the left side of that, what is the second floor, there's that little extension of the existing roof. Keep going up to the right, right there.
Yeah, that's pushed back. If you, sorry, kind of going back and forth to the roof plan on that elevation. But that is pushed back at that point there.
But it says right there, extend plane of existing roof up to new flat roof area. And there's some ridge like dashed in there. Doesn't show up on the projector, but it shows up on our prints. Anyways, the question is that type of roof modification okay with guidelines?
This proposal it's the same as what was approved previously with the exception of the extension on the rear. So
Okay.
it was reviewed to be appropriate. Because
Okay.
it's been reviewed by the commission a couple of times now.
And just a point of clarification on that, Ms. Rose, I know we've had the guideline changed just recently, so it has been re-reviewed for compliance with the current guidelines.
Yes, this area is just not visible from any view sheds, so the roof line guidelines would recommend that historic roof lines remain where visible from the street. Because this is on a corner lot, there's a lot more visibility, but this area is very much tucked away.
Yeah, I'm trying to gain my bearings there, because that's a lot of drawing.
And if I'm missing, if this is a different plan than what you have in front of you,
No, that's it.
okay, you said there was a line not showing up. That's
Yeah,
on your plan.
it's right where that arrow points. It looks like the arrow points into just the white roof space to the left. Right
Okay.
there. Yeah, there's a
Okay.
line there in our drawings.
Oh, I don't have that on mine.
It's gray. It's really light gray.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
That's the new roof on top of the historic roof that gets, so. Anyways, it's a very complicated roof,
It is.
and I'm trying to understand it.
It is.
But I don't have a problem with it. I'm just trying to make sure I understand what's going on and why it looks this way.
Okay, anything else? Everybody clear? Ready to vote? All in favor of the motion to approve with the condition, except for the fencing? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I do agree,
Got
that's
time to go to dinner.
I didn't have that
Okay.
comes and then you're gonna have.
Anything else to come up for the good of the
Yeah,
order?
it's just kind of funny.
Move to adjourn.
It doesn't
Need a
have
motion to
high
adjourn.
visibility.
Move to adjourn.
Oh,
Second.
Mr. Chair, can I say one thing? I have been looking at projects that we've approved. There is more to windows being appropriate than them being wood. And I would really like, we were offered by the gentleman who's the window expert in Nashville, that he would do a workshop for us, and I would like for that to happen. So
I
that's a
am,
request.
I am looking to schedule a workshop.
Okay.
That would be a training session for the commission. It's been difficult with a lot of other things going on, being short-staffed, but we try to do that around October. I
Okay.
do definitely want to do one this year. I've been waiting until I find the time to talk to Mr. Huskew, which I know that Brian and Mary were able to hear at a different training session for CLGs. I will be in touch with you all to figure out what date would work for everybody for that training. And at that point, I'll ask if
Thank
that's
you.
something that he can do. I've spoken with him about other projects recently, and that is something I mentioned to him in passing, and say, I know he'd be happy to do so, but I've been reluctant to nail down a time because I got to work
Well-
with the 9 of you to make sure that's something you can do.
And we appreciate that you're one person right now, so.
Oh, right.
Okay, Mary, that was your second to adjourn.
Yeah, that's my second to adjourn.
Susan?
We have not done this for a while, but I would like to see us do a trolley tour to look
I
at some
agree.
of our projects, and I think it would be really especially helpful for those that are newer to the commission.
The projects that have been approved and have been completed, and
Yes.
that's a good idea.
Okay, well, I don't know if I have funds for that, but I can
Well, but
certainly
we
see
could do
if that's something that we can pull from
something-
somewhere.
Well, we are the most inexpensive commission, so I hope they will
I
find the
know.
funds.
I know, that trolley it can be very expensive, so I can definitely look into that and see what I
We
can do.
said that we had to do it in our own cars.
Who has a
I mean,
van?
You know.
Yeah, we could do a motor.
You know, we
Hey,
could-
It is a really, it's a really helpful
We're
experience.
Doing an
though,
October
you guys,
hayride
certainly.
with my pickup truck.
Scooters, yes, electric
Hitch up
bikes.
the trailer.
There we go, we can do electric bike, go right to the.
Seen too many people hurt. I'm not doing that.
All right, I think we stand adjourned.